Welcome to Tools and Concepts for Operational Excellence. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today I'll address some logistical issues and then introduce our speakers, Dr. Eric Rowe and Mr. Forrest Breyfogle. We do have a lot of material planned for this 1-hour webinar, so the attendee audio will be muted for the remainder of the presentation to ensure that we're able to get through the entire presentation in the time allowed. We do want to encourage you to send us text questions through the system during the presentation. We do value your questions, and if we are not able to get to them during the presentation, we will try to address all questions at the end or follow up with a phone call. There will also be a recording of this webinar available on smartersolutions.com website and via email for all who registered within 48 hours, and you will also, as I said, receive the link to that recording. Please know that as a participant in this webinar, we do want to hear from you, and at the end we will present multiple contact options, including a survey for your feedback. Thank you for joining us again, and I will now introduce our speakers. We've got Dr. Eric Rowe. He is the Executive Director of the Cockrell School of Engineering's Center for Lifelong Engineering Education, also called CLE, at the University of Texas at Austin. At CLE, Dr. Rowe is responsible for the college's professional engineering master's degree programs, engineering professional development conferences, and customized corporate training. Dr. Rowe held various positions in manufacturing research, technical services, and engineering before joining the education sector. Dr. Rowe earned his PhD in chemical engineering from the University of South Florida. Forrest Breyfogle is the founder and CEO of Smarter Solutions, a worldwide company providing business improvement and performance measurement solutions through coaching, consulting, and training. Mr. Breyfogle has authored over a dozen books on the topic of business process management, including the Crosby Award-winning book, Implementing Six Sigma. Mr. Breyfogle has been named Quality Professional of the Year by Quality Magazine, and in 2012 he was awarded Alumni of the Year by Missouri University of Science and Technology, where he earned his BSME degree. Mr. Breyfogle has an MSME degree from the University of Texas at Austin. Again, thank you for joining us, and if you are listening to the recording, we would also solicit your feedback via email. At the end, that information will be provided, and we want to welcome now Eric, Dr. Eric.
Thank you, Elan. Thank you all for joining us on this. Thank you all for joining us on this webinar today. This is our first webinar on operational excellence and our first with our partner, Smarter Solutions. So I want to thank you all for joining us on this call, if you're live or if you're going to be watching the recording later on. Just to get rolling, and then I will step out of the way and let Forrest move forward, and so you can hear from the true expert. I wanted to put up our schedule of upcoming courses. So if you are anywhere on your Lean Six Sigma operational excellence journey, we hopefully have a course that meets your needs. You're going to see a lot of information today as we talk about this kind of integrated approach to operational excellence that brings together kind of a unified approach to balanced scorecard, strategic planning, business improvement, Lean and Six Sigma, all into one unified approach. And I appreciate any comments you might have after the webinar. Please make sure you send them our way, and if you have questions along the way, as Elan said, please put them in the chat box. So with that said, I'll turn the webinar back over to you all, and I'll be here to listen in and add some comments and answer questions at the end.
Great, thanks, Eric.
Well, in this Forrest, we're going to start it off with a polling question here. I'd like for you to select the issues that you've seen occurring in organizational operational excellence and our Lean Six Sigma deployments. Now you can make multiple selections which are acceptable. So the poll is now open. So you're seeing consistencies on these deployments, or maybe they're not followed so well. What about the improvement projects? Are not linked to scorecard improvement needs? How are we doing?
Okay, we are getting some voter answers here, so continue to go ahead and put in your vote, one vote per attendee, but you can select all that apply, and so we're seeing that kind of across the board, and I'll go ahead and close the poll in a second here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and share those results. So what we're finding is kind of across the board, mostly improvement projects are not linked to scorecard improvement needs, or improvement projects take a long time to complete, if ever. We're the most popular.
Yes, it's kind of frequently occurs in organizations. So I'd like to start it off with what is operational excellence. I think people have different thoughts what it really is in their mind. So I like to start with what Wikipedia states. Now the words that I really want to focus on are the last 6 words, which I think are very enlightening. So what do those words imply? Well, to me, you need to have key performance indicator, the metrics themselves reported from a process point of view. Well, if you look at how metrics are typically reported at the enterprise level, we might have a red, yellow, green scorecard, table of numbers, and so on. That's from a process point of view. Also, we need to have Lean Six Sigma improvement projects identified so that the key performance indicators that we think are important to improve are actually getting focus from our improvement efforts. That's not what often happens with traditional Six Sigma. We try to figure out how much we save, but we kind of lose the alignment to performance measures. Thirdly, we need to have a roadmap that truly integrates Lean and Six Sigma tools so that the right tool is used at the right time to actually impact the metric that we're trying to prove. Often we have people saying, I want to do Lean first, then Six Sigma, or vice versa. But what I'm suggesting is we need to have a methodology so we're using the right tool at the right time that affects the metric that we need to improve. And then finally, we need to have a methodology that's sustainable so that when we do make improvements, that they're long-lasting. Well, we have control at the end of a project execution roadmap, but that control is often lost in day-to-day performance. Basically, what we're going to be covering in this session is a methodology that addresses all these operational excellence needs. So the learning objectives at the end of this session are to describe some of the background of Six Sigma and Lean and how it's evolved over time, how we can go in and execute an operational excellence system roadmap for having Lean Six Sigma with process improvement project selection. So we want to basically have projects that are going to impact the big picture. Thirdly, we want to have an operational excellence system and culture that's data-based, so it gets away from, hey, making decisions just on the gut. So we really want to figure out what we might do to help the big pictures, and that there's a long-lasting maintenance of those project benefits. So fundamentally, is there a better way? So let's first look at Six Sigma and Lean and how did it evolve? Well, Motorola started Six Sigma in the 80s to improve quality. That was their focus. GE, under the leadership of Jack Welch, deployed Six Sigma in the mid-90s so that we really focused on improvement projects that had financial benefits. Now, Lean was added to the mix around the turn of the century, so in Lean we look at focusing on the reduction of waste. Defects are typically related to Six Sigma, and reduction of waste is Lean, and so now they're fundamentally put together. This is the traditional evaluation of roles that we might have in a Lean Six Sigma deployment. Now, it's important to keep in mind it's an improvement project-based system where we're really focusing on projects that's going to have a lot of financial benefits. So we tend to push projects in the system. Got another polling question, Alon?
Great. We encourage participation in this, and I've posted that poll. How did you obtain your Lean Six Sigma training? And please select one on this one. We do have a couple of options. If you're new, go ahead and select the first one if Lean Six Sigma is pretty new to you. We want to know if you've done a 4-week black belt or a 2-week green belt classroom course. This is the second option. The third option, black or green belt course that was less than the 4 or 2 weeks respectively. Or if you did online Lean Six Sigma training. And I'll go ahead and close that in a second here. Okay, thank you for your participation. And so it looks like most people, 41%, did a 4-week or a 2-week green or black belt classroom course. And then next to that was almost 30% with online.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for participation. We got another polling question.
And we'll go ahead and launch that. And how did you obtain, this is different from the previous question, how did you obtain your certification? If you took your course online or in the classroom, what did you do to follow up with certification? Okay, we'll give it a couple of seconds here. Go ahead. We've still got a lot of people voting. That's great. We love to see these results, and I'll go ahead and close now and share the results. So it's pretty even spread here. A lot of people got certification by taking the ASQ or IASSC test without a refresher, were required to complete a project, or it was a part of the corporate initiative. Again, thank you for your participation. If you do have questions as Forrest continues through his presentation, please feel free to input those in the chat function.
Okay, again, thank you for your participation. So we're going to move now to the second learning objective. We want to have an operational excellence system roadmap for Lean Six Sigma process improvement project execution. Again, the theme that I have is there a better way? Now, if we look at traditional Lean Six Sigma, we have a DMAIC roadmap. That's the basic roadmap that is followed by most organizations. It's define, measure, analyze, improve, control. However, the various deployments or various implementations don't necessarily put the tools in the same place, or they don't necessarily have the same methodologies that's taught as part of the overall Lean Six Sigma deployment. So the question is there a better way to get a consistent approach? Well, what we're suggesting is an IEE or Integrated Enterprise Excellence roadmap. This is a very structured roadmap. It's not like you have to do every tool for every project, but it really puts it all together. Now, my first book that revolved around Six Sigma, which it was really the first technical book on Six Sigma, which came out in 1999, Now, in this book, I tried to put the tools where I thought that GE generally did. Because of that, I had some extra drill downs in the measure phase, because GE put flow charting, cause and effect diagram, cause and effect matrix, and FMEA in the measure phase. To me, they weren't truly measured. So I lumped those under the wisdom of the organization. On the right-hand side, you see measurement system analysis. We have baseline the project and planning the project. Now, in 2003, I added lean to something else that should be considered a part of the measure phase. And then in my newer books on integrated enterprise excellence, I include lean tools also in the analyze phase. Now, our training revolves around our books. So one that takes our training through UT and online training is they use the set of books, and the examples and exercises and reading are from these books. Volume 3, for example, is dealing with the Lean Six Sigma project execution roadmap. It's like over 1,100 pages. The blue book there is a memory jogger for Volume 3, which has very detailed drill downs of each one of these steps. So these books can also be used not only as a refresher for the methodologies described, but also can be used to coach others. So let's kind of walk through what's basically covered in an IEEE DMAIC roadmap. Many of these methodologies are covered in other deployments, but we want to add a structure putting it all together and kind of illustrate at a high level what really happens. So you can see from the define phase, we've got key deliverables, and then we got some tools. One of the major things that you're focusing on in the define phase is a problem statement. So typically we're trying to address a problem when we execute a project. Now, what's the implication of that project? Might have customer complaints, shipping costs, so on. Maybe even some penalties. So this really nets out what you're really trying to do. And again, I make reference to the book where you could find more elaboration on problem statements. Now, another piece that's really important here is the measure. Again, it's got some deliverables and tools associated with this. Now, what we do in our training is we reference a 30,000 foot level approach for baselining a project. Now, one that is familiar with control charting, they might say, well, this is just a control chart. Well, not really. This is a 30,000 foot level view of how the process is performing before we've done anything with it. Now, in this 30,000 foot level chart, we're really focusing on the common cause variability, and not so much like control charts are trying to identify when unusual events occur, stop the presses, and fix the problem. So in this particular case, the red dot indicates a special cause, maybe an unusual event, and one could evaluate or look into that. However, if we ignore it, and in our software we can do that, we then get a statement of how the process is performing, written in English that everybody can understand. The estimated performance is 5.3%. So we got about a 5.3% wastage number. So that's what we're really tracking at the 30,000 foot level view. Now, what we've done as part of this training, we've created an add-in to Minitab statistical software, and it's used to create this chart quite easily. And this is an example of just one type of chart that you can create with this particular add-in. So our green belt and black belt and master black belt are based upon this form of reporting. The add-in to Minitab is available at no charge from the website that I can send you if you're interested. But in the training we get into how to use it. And the application for this kind of reporting also applies at the enterprise level as well. Now, the next thing that we might look at as part of this overall roadmap is a measurement system analysis. For example, if you go in a doctor's office, they might measure blood pressure on the your left hand arm and then your right hand arm, so you can get a different answer. And a lot of times it depends upon who measures it and when they measure it and what they get for an answer. And that can affect your 30,000-foot level. So we talk about that as part of the project execution deployment. Now keep in mind this same technique applies at the enterprise level as well. Flow charting is a key part. You want to look at what's really happening within your organization for that particular project that you're trying to undertake. We can also do a lean value stream map from, for example, from customer order to actually fulfillment, and now we can see all the delays that occurs and the information flows that happen. So that can give us insight to what we might do to actually expedite or have it so that we don't have as many problems. Cause and effect diagram is another tool that's part of the overall roadmap of executing a project. In this case, we're trying to use the organization wisdom to figure out where we might focus our efforts to better understand what we might do to improve the process. Again, this is referenced in, I believe, Volume 3. Now moving on to analyze, what we look at when we analyze a project is we've got a certain amount of stability within this process. And we can take that data from the stability, we can analyze it and do statistical analysis to give us insight to what we might, where we might focus our efforts to improve. For example, we might find there's difference between operators, days of the week, machines, or so on. That can give us insight to what we could do to improve. Again, these same techniques can apply at the enterprise level, which is where what we talk about in the Master Black Belt training. Again, statistical hypothesis can give us insight. In this case, this is an analysis of mean, so this might be indicating that operator number 6 takes a little bit more time on answering the call, or maybe the hold time in a call center is longer in that particular call center, and call center 7 it's lower. Again, these same tools could apply at the enterprise analysis piece as well. Now we're moving on to improve. Again, the deliverables on the left-hand side and the tools on the right-hand side. So what kind of tools do we have? Well, we got air proofing and waste reduction. Those are lean tools, and I'm putting those and saying they're very important to consider as part of the improvement phase. We also have design of experiments. Design of experiments where you can start changing some things collectively and looking at how things interact. How might you apply this? Well, even in a transactional environment, if we're trying to change something and we want to evaluate if that change is good, we probably ought to consider design of experiment. So for example, the sales process change in documentation may be beneficial for a new sales employee, but for an experienced one, it's not so beneficial. So you would have an interaction. In the improve phase, we also like to quantify the improvements that we've made. So just highlighting this waste reduction effort that we're trying to undertake with this project, we notice that it changed to a new level of performance. Now, once we made a change, what we like to do is control it. So how are we going to do that? We'd like to mistake proof as much as possible. We could have a control chart at a 50-foot level. This could even be a pre-control chart saying, hey, we need to go in and make an adjustment. We need to redress the grinding wheel. We need to add another person in the call center. What parameters might you look at? You might consider making more airproof so we don't make mistakes. It's not up to a person's judgment. Can we automate the process? Do we have controls for the improvements? Those are other things you have to consider. Now, one thing I haven't talked about, or is the books that I provided here, and that's referenced in the training, is we got check sheets in Volume 3 and the Project Execution Guide. It's not like you have to do every task within each of the phases, but you can look at this sheet and say, oh, did I forget anything? Even airplane pilots have a checklist, even though they've flown thousands of flights. Let's move now to the third learning objective. How can we create an operational excellence culture that really identifies improvement offers so that the big picture benefits and process enhancements that we've gained are maintained after the project is completed? Again, is there a better way? Now, if we look at typical metrics, they're fiscal years, unrelated to improvement system, point-to-point comparisons. This is not looking at our enterprise as a system of processes where Y is a function of X. So if you don't like what Y is giving you, you've got to change your inputs or the process itself. Effective metrics view the enterprise as a system of processes. Also acknowledge effective variability. Red, yellow, green scorecards don't talk about variability. Table of numbers don't. That's an issue. They don't also encourage necessarily systematic process improvement. Meet the numbers next quarter. That's not system thinking and not operational excellence system thinking per the last 6 words of that previously shown definition. So integrated enterprise excellence is basically a 9-step system where improvement projects are step 7 of this system. So let me walk you through the thought process on this system. We first look at the vision and mission. Okay. Secondly, we look at what you do and how you measure what you do. Satellite or financial metrics, and 30,000-foot level are operational metrics. So we'd like to have a way of reporting that, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Then what we like to do is analyze the enterprise. Now we're going to look at this value chain, but we also look at voice of the customer feedback, theory, constraint, issues. And then step 4, we're going to create SMART, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-based, satellite level metric goals. Those are financial goals. We're going to have targeted strategies aligned to those. And then we want to identify which 30,000-foot level metrics we want to improve in the value chain. There should be an owner of that. And if it's a strategic metric we want to improve, then what we want to do is have that metric pool for project creation. That is in step number 7 in the overall roadmap. Now, if we did a good job, we improved the procedures in step 2, which improved the 30,000-foot level or operational metric, which then positively impacted the satellite level metrics. And now we notice that we loop back to step number 3, so you got somewhat of a Deming plan, do, check, act for the enterprise as a whole.
Great. Well, Forrest, I do have a question here I want to interject, and this attendee is asking about Lean Six Sigma and BPM as a tool to improve the process. When do you actually use that? And so I assume in this image here, you're kind of giving us the answer that we do that at 7, but how do we know that we need to use Lean Six Sigma or BPM?
Well, BPM that's also not the same. The business process management is not the same to everybody. Some people are just thinking that's automation. Other one thinks about it's more documentation, where the value chain in step number 2 is really somewhat of a BPM methodology, but it also includes scorecards, where a lot of times BPM does not structurally include scorecards in their methodology. But as far as the Lean Six Sigma piece of it, we'd identify improvement projects or we execute them in step 7. But one of the differences that we have from BPM and some of the traditional operational excellence system is what we want to do is have measurements that are tracked from a process point of view, the 30,000-foot level view, and then we want to actually improve them through either the projects or maybe automation of the project is another viable approach. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, shoot me an email and we'll talk about it later offline.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. So this is the value chain. This is basically step 2 of the IEEE system. So the connections that we have at the top with the arrows are the main things that a hospital does. And then the other rectangle boxes below that are support functions. Now what you'd like to do is make this clickable. So for example, we click on Deliver Clinical Services, then what we can get is the metrics that we have, relative quality, cost, and time, and we have also the process associated with it. Now the metrics are the Y for this particular operation, and X is described as the process associated with it and its input. So basically we have Y as a function of X. See what we've done? We've connected, per the operational excellence definition, the last 6 words, we basically connected them all together. And so if we don't like Y, then we need to make improvements to the process. But what happens typically, though, in organization is people in the north wing of the building are working on metrics, and then the people in the south wing of the building work on process documentation improvement. They don't talk to each other. The value chain pulls it all together. Now, if we click on various aspects of this, we can get into other detailed processes, documentation, spreadsheets, or whatever. So this can become a repository for where everything can be found. We can also click on the metrics. So now we can, at the 30,000 foot level view, have metrics in a different format. We can deal with sometimes we have to have transformations. But this is not a traditional control chart. We're having a statement of how the process is performing. Another thing that we have for this particular situation, we got data from subgrouping, and we're looking at an individual chart of the mean and an individual's chart of the log of the standard deviation to say if the process is stable or not. If it is, then we create the probability plot in the lower right-hand corner, which makes a statement of how we're performing. In this particular case, we don't have a specification, so we say the median value is such and such value, and 80% of the time it's between the 2 values shown off of the chart. So again, these kind of reporting is described in both our green belt, black belt, and also the master black belt training. Gets into the details of how to do that, and after our mini-tab add-in, it's really quite easy to create this types of charts. Now what you want to do is you would like to go in and have improvement projects that's going to benefit the business as a whole. If you recall, in the 9-step system, step number 1, vision and mission. Step 2 is your value chain. Step 3 is analyze. Now step 4 is business goals. And step 5, 6, and 7 are shown here. So what we like to do is get to the point that we have step 7, the projects we're working on, line to the high potential areas that's important for the business as a whole. And the owner of those metrics are asking for that project to get done because that's tied to their 30,000 foot level in the value chain. So often what we do is we just try to pick projects that's going to save quite a bit of money, but they can die on the vine since it's not lined to their performance metrics, as the last 6 words of the operational excellence definition indicated was important. So what we're trying to do, again, just to highlight, we're looking at 30,000 foot level view. We're seeing if our process is stable. The other thing I didn't point out, if the process is stable from a 30,000 foot level point of view, it's also predictable. So this is what we're predicting in the future, this distribution. If that's not satisfactory, then what we need to go in and create a pool for the project. So if we did a good job on the project, then our 30,000 foot level view changed to a new enhanced level of performance. And now we can see the benefits of what we've done. And that could have some financial savings. Now this is for continuous data. But what happens if you got attribute or pass-fail data? Now we don't need a probability plot or a distribution. We can look at the change that we might have. But again, that creates a pull for project if you're not performing as well as you like. So aligning this to the enterprise improvement plan shown in the upper right-hand corner, we notice we made an improvement here. We established a goal, and we actually achieved that goal through the way of an improvement project. So this is how we'd like to see improvement projects identified and focus given to improvement efforts that's going to benefit the big picture and the process owners asking for the project to get completed. So what I'm suggesting, use 30,000 foot level reporting to drive the right behaviors. Now what is the cost of this? I like to look at the cost benefits or costing instead of cost of poor quality is cost of doing nothing differently. So what's the implication of the value of this project? Well, again, we're not reacting to all the ups and downs. That's normal common cause variability. We're trying to see the benefit of what we've done here. So the question is there a better way? And I'm suggesting there is that we use this 30,000 foot level reporting, and then we look at what is the cost that we have before the project implement. That's cost of doing nothing differently, and then we look at the value that we have now since we've reduced the wastage value in our process. So just reiterating what Wikipedia states as operational excellence. Again, I was focused on the last 6 words. Relative to the first bullet, what I think is really important if you're trying to undertake an operational excellence system is your KPIs need to be reported from a process point of view. If not, how can you see that you made an improvement to them? You also want to go in and create projects that's going to benefit the big picture. So the Enterprise Improvement Plan addresses this. 30,000 foot level reporting addresses the first bullet. The EIP addresses this bullet. You'd also like to have a consistent roadmap so that right now we're using the right tools at the right time. In the IEE roadmap that we described earlier, which is described in Volume 3, and also Project Execution Guide, which again are used within the training, addresses this issue. So we're using the right tool at the right time. And then finally, the value chain that we're talking about, that we talked about earlier, is a system for sustaining Lean Six Sigma enhancement after the completion of projects. So in the value chain, that 30,000 foot level metric gets reported. And what you can also have is you can have automatically updates of the report out. So you don't have to go in and do all these special reports for management and others who may be making such a request. That's just an option you might consider. So basically, all these operational excellence needs were addressed in this webinar, and a system for actually achieving operational excellence and addressing the last 6 words of this Wikipedia definition were described in this session. Let's look at our learning objectives. The first one was Lean Six Sigma. Where did it all come from? How did it get started? We talked about that. The second bullet is the Operational Excellence System Roadmap for project selection. I showed you that EIP, Enterprise Improvement Plan, as part of the 9-step system. And then how you can go in, the third bullet being how you can create a culture that's driven around this operational excellence approach. And having the value chain, especially if you had automatically updated metrics, can help you achieve this objective also. Again, is there a better way? And that's what I am suggesting in this webinar. So relative to the training, working with the University of Texas, we got various different options. The one thing I want to highlight is the Master Black Belt training is 2 weeks over 2 months, and that's going to be coming up pretty soon. In this, I'm basically focusing on how you can create this operational excellence system. The first week is focusing on the 30,000 foot level metrics and the value chain, and then we apply some of the other Lean Six Sigma tools at the enterprise level. So it's kind of a life-changing event. And also the white belt, or 3 to 4 hours, we're calling it something different with the University of Texas here. And we can do these sessions can be done on-site or as public offerings. So as Eric pointed out, these are the training options we have. And Eric, you want to talk about it?
Sure. Thank you, Forrest. Before I talk about these specific classes, I just wanted to kind of revisit one of the approach you identified here. I think that enhanced DMAIC approach really provides someone with the tools to support both the production and transactional sectors with Lean Six Sigma. And having started my own Lean journey back in the TQM days in the 80s and 90s, and then seeing the evolution of Lean adherence and Six Sigma adherence, I really like the IEE approach that integrates the two concepts, where you let your high-level metrics that you're trying to define and improve dictate which of the Lean Six Sigma tools you use at both the enterprise level and the project level. I think, for too long, and this is kind of philosophical, you and I have had these conversations, there's been a Lean approach or a Six Sigma approach, and I think this integrated approach lets you choose which tool works best for your specific enterprise or project level problem you're trying to solve. And I wanted to, if you would, in the discussion you mentioned defining the problem as a function, y is a function of x, and that those are clickable. That's something that is in the Minitab add-on, is that correct?
What we do is we show how to do that is with the Minitab add-in creates the 30,000 foot level report out. In the Master Black Belt training, what we do is we have a web-based system that integrates the process flowcharting with the metric itself. So then it becomes clickable, and they can create it clickable. Now it doesn't have automatically updated software so that the metrics are updated, but if they want to evolve to that, they can go in and get that. That's beyond it. But the Minitab add-in really focuses on how to create the 30,000 foot level report out, and it's it's like a one-time deal, but it doesn't necessarily formally integrate with the flowcharting piece. Now, if you have a Visio or some other publishing flowchart, you could have the 30,000 foot level actually linked to a published document. But we do a lot of that and show the mechanics of that, doing that in Master Black Belt training.
Great. Yeah, the link to Visio was the piece I was missing. I think the fact that using Minitab, makes this kind of a a vendor agnostic approach to using a very common tool that's out there. Just for our webinar participants, again, if you have some questions, please type them in the chat box. You can see the courses we've got listed here. Our approach here at the University of Texas Austin is to present the toolkit as an integrated approach that serves not only the production sector, but transactional sectors also. We have specific partnership there at the top with the Operational Excellence Officer of Baylor Scott & White to put some courses together specifically related to Lean for Healthcare. And Steve Hoft, our instructor, is expert in that space, and with Dr. Pryor, the former CMO of Baylor Scott & White, we really get some boots on the ground approach to how Lean and Six Sigma and integrated excellence could be deployed in a healthcare organization. And then the others, as Forrest laid out, you know, depending on where you're at in your journey, don't be discouraged, because if this seemed too high a level for you, that's why the courses are established as a series of stackable credentials, you know, from your green belt to your black belt to your master black belt. If you're interested in kind of a longer version of this webinar and seeing how you can really deploy these pieces, that Beyond Lean Six Sigma and the Balanced Scorecard is a 4-hour session in one day. So kind of an easy commitment to get involved and up your game a little no matter where you're at on your journey. So Forrest and Ilan, thank you for presenting the webinar. I'll step out now and I'll listen for the questions, and if I have something to contribute, I'll jump in.
Yeah, well, thank you, Eric. I wanted to highlight another point, that for as the green belt and the black belt, we're really working with people to do real projects. So we're about having coaching on that too. A lot of times people are training is not with a real project, and people have difficulty applying them. So having coaching, helping people apply the techniques, then that creates the value for not only the individual but the organization as well. The Beyond Lean Sigma and the Balanced Scorecard, like Eric said, is kind of a 4-hour session that presents a high-level view of that. And that course could also be done on site to if that works better for you in the Austin area. Again, the Master Black Belt training, I'll be doing that pretty soon. Somebody does not really need to be a belt to actually attend that session. I've done quite a bit on redoing that if they're got a technical nature to them, but it kind of puts together this overall operational excellence system. So anyway, those are a couple other things that I wanted to highlight. So it's always what's in it for me, you know, obviously everybody's got that point. So anyway, these are some of the things that are available. If you send me an email request, I can send you a link to that free mini-tab add-in, and so you can go in and benefit from that. And we've also got some, if you're interested in the books, and also some other things there too. So, and I guess so. I guess we're open for questions now. Got some questions?
We do. Thank you. Thank you, Forrest. Thank you, Dr. Rowe, for your participation today and your presentation. We do have some questions, so I'll go ahead and get to those attendee questions. One attendee would like to have an example of how Lean Six Sigma would work in their insurance business.
Okay, let's look at in the insurance business. Okay, what might be a good metric that you might have in the insurance business? Well, I can think of a few. You might look at cancellations. Let's say in particular maybe automobile insurance. Okay, so now you're looking at what is the frequency of cancellations. So from a 30,000-foot level point of view, I would look at how many policy owners I have, and then I would look at how many cancellations I might have. So I look at that ratio and track that ratio over time and see that how it's performing. And it's going to have some variability associated with it, may even have some seasonality, but it's probably going to be a common cause variability. You got 20% of the people are leaving, or 10%. Then the question gets to be, if you're saying, well, I don't want to have so many people leave, then what you would want to do is find out why. So then you might go call people and start asking them, because sometimes survey questions can be very deceiving. And then that might give you insight what you can do to actually determine what you might do to the process. It might be a pricing issue, or it might be some other issues that you can actually address. So that's an example of how one might apply the techniques in the insurance business.
Great, thank you for that, Forrest. And I did get a comment too. The hospital example was very helpful, so thank you for that as well. Another question, an attendee is wanting to know about which courses are available online.
Well, we have the black belt courses online. We have also the green belt course online. We have a yellow belt course online. We don't have the master black belt course online because we think if the interaction is really so important in the way we're actually executing it, that's one course we have not chosen to go online with. If you want any more information about that, you can shoot me an email.
Great, thank you. You mentioned that one could automate the reporting of our metrics. How can that be done?
We have some software that sits on the server with Minitab. So Minitab would have a license for this server license. And the way it works is that like once a day, so it's not like once a minute or anything like that. Once a day, it goes out and pulls data from your ERP system and SQL databases or wherever, and then it creates these charts and it puts them as a picture. So these pictures would appear in the value chain drill down. So now you would have relatively current date for anybody that wants to click through it. So you could go in and click through it and see how your particular process is performing relative to metrics. Now notice how this is quite a bit different, and I think it's also really consistent with the last 6 words of operational excellence. It's not trying to look at what problems that we had today, because more often than not they're common cause. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. You hit this problem over here and then something else pops on you later. Yeah. So you tend to be a lot of firefighting. So the 30,000-foot level view says, hey, okay, it's up today more than it was yesterday, but it's common cause variability. We've got a 5% problem, and that's costing us $500,000 a month. We need to get somebody fixing it. So now that metric is pulling for project creation.
Yeah, that is great. That is excellent. We do have a question here. Can we use the IEE approach with data analytics and 4DX, the 4 disciplines of execution?
Yeah, what our software fits into, it can play really nicely with a lot of software out there. We're not really competing with Tableau or anything else relative to drilling down to find out what all the what is. But what our software offers, which we don't see other ones performing, is looking at your KPIs from a performance, process point of view, but it's also linking it to the process. So there's a lot of other software that can go in and drill down and do the what ifs and analyze by different regions and so on, but it does not really report out relative to a process point of view, and that's what really the focus that we have. And then far as the 8Ds or any other technique you can improve it, I really don't care. So you could actually do a Kaizen event, not really do any of the analyze piece for Lean Six Sigma. And to me, that's fine. And the proof of the pudding that you made a difference is the 30,000-foot level individuals charge changed to a new level of performance, and now we can see how we expect to perform in the future.
Great, thanks, Forrest. Dr. Rowe, this question was addressed to you. What certifying body do the courses follow, and is the certification University of Texas?
So the certification that we align with is, help me out, Forrest, it's the IA, I always get the acronym wrong.
Yeah, it's International Associated Six Sigma Certification. So it's IASSC. That's yeah, so where you can go in and take that test. So it's aligned with that particular test, and then we also go in and offer certification too from our point of view. So the IASSC is kind of a multiple choice test, and so that would be illustrating that you got basically the concept, but what we're looking for here is kind of a joint certification that you actually completed your project and that you had some benefits along with it.
Yeah, and for the person who asked the question, we aligned with the IASSC because we see the value in a national third-party credential, and we definitely wanted to create courses that had that project aligned with them, with the mentoring piece that goes after it, because we think there's real value in not just taking a course and taking a test and getting a series of letters that go after your name, but instead taking a course to learn the tools, going out and applying those tools, and then being able to take an assessment and get a national credential. Accompanying the IASSC certification, there is a certificate from the University of Texas Austin that accompanies the completion of the course and the project. So I think, there's both. There's the UT Austin certification, but then from a national standpoint, the IASSC.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rowe. What is the key difference between operational excellence and business excellence in the context of IEE, Integrated Enterprise Excellence?
I think that integrated enterprise excellence is really a means to achieve operational excellence. So it's basically a business system that's really going to lead to the right behaviors. Trying to not sound too arrogant, that Deming had a great philosophy, but he didn't have a system for pulling it off. I've mentioned it. You may or may not agree with me, but whenever I mention that face-to-face, people they agree with me. IEE is a system for pulling Deming's methodology off. So it's a methodology for putting it all together. To me, in time, this course, and the Master Black Belt in particular, is a life-changing event. And this is how you look at data and how you really make a difference. And to me, this is an approach that should be taught in the future in business schools and the way businesses are run. Because a lot of times we'll have metrics reporting that leads to the very bad behaviors. Extreme conditions be like even the BP oil spill. They knew they had problems in safety below in the organization, but who in the world is going to go up in the chain of command saying we got some safety issues? That's a career-limiting, event, career-limiting discussion. So with this clickable system, it builds a certain level of transparency. That's the other hidden benefit for that. And even like listeria problems with Bluebell ice cream, they had listeria problems long before the government shut them down. But what we're suggesting through this overall system, we can actually help that identify, and people can have transparency in this and really see these type of metrics and they're reported from a process point of view, and people at all levels of the organization can have access to this information.
Great, thank you. So I will ask one final question, and this is based on theory of constraints, just quickly here. Would you say that theory of constraints is one of the tools that you can use while you're in the project phase?
Well, okay.
Of the mindset?
I would describe theory of constraints as the most benefit in the enterprise piece before you get to the project execution. Now, it could be done in the project execution, but if you recall, step 3 was analyze. So what you want to do is analyze the enterprise as a whole, and just like the goal driver was talking about is, sometimes the constraints outside of your organization. I did a keynote presentation for a major defense contractor, and the operations manager was saying they're doing so much in lean. I took a tour. I said, well, you're doing a great job in lean, but I noticed you got a lot of idle equipment. What projects you do in sales and marketing? They weren't doing anything. That was obviously their bottleneck. That's what theory constraints would show. And if you analyze the enterprise as a whole using our approach, you would see those sorts of things, and now you go in and do projects where it's going to benefit the big picture. So definitely theory constraints is a very important piece. And I actually, in Volume 2, I have a chapter on it that's really talking about the 9-step system.
Great. Well, Forrest, thank you so much for all of your knowledge, for sharing the DMAIC roadmap with us. Dr. Rowe, thank you for participating in this webinar, and working with us as a partner. It's been a great journey, and we look forward to many students together. I do want to bring all the attendees' attention back to the slide for contact information. Feel free to reach out to us via email, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can see those links there. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for your feedback, and we hope that you'll take the time to finish the survey at the end of this webinar. Dr. Rowe, Forrest, any final words?
I think we've pretty well covered it. What about you, Dr. Rowe?
I agree. Thank you all for your participation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.